We have a special guest speaker today. Justin Patton is one of our speakers. He has written a lot of great books. He is an executive coach who challenges leaders to communicate and lead with stronger presence, to provide leadership development programs. Also, across the world, he's worked with over 500 different organizations. Really a stellar guy. Very cool to hang out with. Very nice gentleman. Justin earned a master's degree in education and is a faculty member for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He has expertise in body language and executive presence and is a member of the International Coach Federation and National Speakers Association. Justin is very high energy, so if you haven't had enough energy this morning, here's your next dose. And he will challenge you to look at things differently, how you lead and how you communicate. I would like to welcome Mr. Justin Patton.
Like a woman.
All right, everyone, so we're going to start out a little different. If you agree with this, I want you to say yes, but I want you to say yes so loud that everyone upstairs is like, what is going on with those energetic women, all right? So say yes if you agree that how we communicate impacts our personal and professional success, yes? And I want you to say yes if you agree that your body language impacts your ability to create trust and connection with people. Yes? Yes. So I'm an executive coach, and I've always been told in my kind of career that people come into your life to really teach you lessons about yourself, stuff that you need to learn. But I want to tell you about a time I'm not proud of and about a person that taught me a big lesson about myself and about body language and presence because I got it really wrong. I was in Denver, Colorado years ago. It was the middle of winter, and you all know what it's like when you're in the winter, you get your big coat on, and the moment I walk out, the only thing I'm thinking about is getting to my car. And I remember walking out of this building, and I see this homeless lady over here on the side, but I turned to the left, and I just kind of beeline and got all cuddled up and started heading to the car. And this woman, in the sweetest, probably the sweetest tone I've ever heard in my career, I heard her say, "Excuse me, sir." And because I was so preoccupied with what my agenda was and getting in my car, I completely ignored her. And I kept walking to my car, and she said for a second time, in the same sweet tone, she goes, "Excuse me, sir." And I ignored her again. And on the third time, finally, she says, "Excuse me, sir." And I finally stop. And what happened is I turned around and I talked to this homeless lady. And I think I ended up giving her money and stuff, and we just had a quick conversation. And I got back to my car. And I sat in my Jeep, and everything that I have built my business is off this quote: "Take responsibility for your energy." And I realized in that moment, I did not take responsibility for the energy that I showed up with in that setting. And I made a commitment to myself that I hope that I would never treat someone else like that in my entire life. I made that homeless lady feel like she was completely invisible. And I thought about how many times how many of you as women feel like, just as leaders, as moms, you get so busy being busy that you lose yourself? Would you agree, yes? Yeah, so many women that I get to coach, that's what they say, "I'm so busy being busy." And what happens is I think when we get busy, we sometimes forget the impact our presence has on people. And I made this person feel completely invisible and like who they were did not matter. And I made a commitment. What I realized, it wasn't about money. It wasn't about giving anything. It was about showing up for people. And I didn't do that. So I made a commitment that I would never do that again. So I'm going to give you an opportunity. So I was coming in this room today, and I know when you found out you had assigned seats, someone goes, "I don't know if I'm feeling this." I heard someone out there, all right? So here's my challenge to every one of you, right? Was that, y'all, that's knowing laughter, like that was me, okay? I get it, right? But one of the things we just heard was use this as an opportunity to network. More importantly, here's what I would tell you. Show up for the women at your table. Because I'm a big believer that someone at that table needs to hear your message in only the way that you can say it. And someone at that table just needs someone to look at them and say, "Are you okay? What's going on?" Or, "You know what? I'm really proud of you and I believe in you." I think sometimes we just forget how important our presence is, our body language is, and how your body language is going to impact everyone else at that table here. And so I'll give you one a final example. I teach a leadership program every month at Taco Bell, and we teach a program called The Mark. And it's about what is the mark that you want to leave as a leader. And I'll never forget the story. There was a woman, she went through the program about the type of impact she wanted to have and about her power of her presence. And she went back to her Taco Bell restaurant, and a woman drove through the drive-thru. And you know that moment when someone comes through, you meet someone, and you can just tell that something's wrong. Your intuition tells you, but you don't know what it is. So the RGM at the window could tell that something was wrong with this lady, and she looked at her, and she goes, "Ma'am, are you okay?" And the woman starts getting emotional, and she said to her, she goes, "I'm actually on my first treatment to chemotherapy." She goes, "I have no one to go with me." And the RGM knew there was nothing she could do to fix that situation. But she knew her presence could make a difference to that woman. And she said to her, "Listen, I know this might sound a little crazy," but she goes, "I've been told a lot in my life that I give really good hugs. Can I give you a hug?" And that woman got out of her car and through the drive-through window hugged that manager. For that manager just to say to her, "Your presence matters and we believe in you here. And when you get done with that, I want you to come back and let us know." That's the power that our presence has on people. So today, everything that I'm going to do is to teach you about body language. I studied body language from a former FBI agent. I built my career on helping leaders understand how does your presence impact your ability to have influence, your ability to create trust and connection with people. It's going to impact the way that you love in your relationships. It's going to impact the way that you parent and the way that you have conversations with your kids. So I'm going to give you a lot to think about. But I know there's a lot of people out there who goes, "Listen, I've been through this body language stuff before. I got this down, so I'm going to challenge you right now." So at your table, it's going to be really interactive. You are not just going to sit here and listen to me. So at this, okay, I know you're like, "Thank goodness," all right? So what I want you to do is at your table, I want you to have a quick conversation. Now, I know a couple of you, I don't want you to look it up. I just want you to make your best guess. If I asked you, what is the most honest part of the body, I want you to think about what would you say it is? And I want you to share it at your table look, everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know, okay." What would you say is the most honest part of the body? Talk about it, and then I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to get going. All right. So I'm going to call on a few of you, and I'm going to ask some of the tables to kind of share, what do you think the most honest part of the body is, all right? So I do want to hear. So I'm going to start all the way over there in the oh, there you go. I got it. I love your energy. Tell me what it is. Okay, it's your face. What else do you think over here? Eyes. All the way in the back over there. What do you think? Eyes, your whole body. You just went for it all. She's like, "I'm going to get it right. Everything." Okay? Good for you. All right. You're wrong, but good for you. Okay? Okay? What else? Okay, your arms, hands. Raise your hand if you think it's your face or your eyes. Raise your hand. Own it. I want you to own it. Because y'all know I'm setting you up, right? Okay? You're wrong. Okay? But see, that's what happens. Our entire careers, we've been taught, look people in the eyes, look them in the face. It's the most honest part of the body. Most of you know, if you have kids, you know they can look at you and be like, "I didn't take it." Of course they did. Right? You know they did, right? So it is not your face or your eyes, right? It's important, but it is not the most honest part of the body. Now, I know I put it out on Twitter and on the app last night. I actually asked some people, what do you think the most honest part of the body? And someone did get it right. What else? Anybody other guesses? It is your feet. Look, it's only 8:35 and you're already learning. Look, okay, it's good, okay? So, I'm going to explain to you why as we go through here. Everything that I studied as an executive coach was actually about energy. And it is about how our energy impacts, our mindset, our presence. And I'm going to show you in a little bit. I'm going to have a few volunteers. I'm going to have a few volunteers share, and I'll show you why the feet are the most honest part of the body. Look, now everyone's like looking beside them. She don't like me. Please do not start doing that, okay? So I'm going to come back to it, but I do want you to know a few things about body language. This is why it's so important and why it's so accurate. Your thoughts and your feelings all get impacted by the limbic part of your brain. And then what happens is it comes out in your body language. And in the way you communicate, love, parent, all of that. And the other part is this. Body language is not about what anyone in this room wants it to mean. It is about perception. I want you to get that. Body language isn't about what anyone wants it to mean. It is about how other people are perceiving you, how they perceive you at your table right now, how they perceive you in meetings that you show up in. I love it when I have people come up to me and they do this. They'll cross their arms like this and they do all this and they're like, well, this is just comfortable for me. Well, okay, great, but it's not about you, okay? Right? It's not. It's about how other people on the other side of that message are perceiving you. I can't make you body language experts. Could it be because you're cold? Yes. Could it be because of something else? Yes. But it doesn't matter. It's about perception. And I'm going to give you an example. This is the difference between what I do and I think other body language experts. A lot of body language experts will get up here and they teach you how to analyze other people. And I don't agree with that because everything that I teach executives and about in leadership is about connection and it's about trust. And if you are so busy analyzing everyone else in the room, what are you not doing? You're not connecting. You're not even showing up for people. So I tell people, show up for yourself first. And what happens, the more you do that, the more you're going to start seeing other things in other people. And then you can just start asking questions. But we have to take responsibility for our own energy and how we're showing up and how our body language is impacting our ability to really lead and communicate more effectively. So, out of 100% of communication, how much do you think is body language and nonverbal? What would you, just make a guess, what do you think? 75. There's a quote, there's a study, a lot of people say 93%, and it's often been misquoted. And what I would say is there's a lot of different stats on how important body language is, but I want you to know this. It's over 65%. So all you need to know is that the majority of how every one of you in this room, this entire week, people are going to experience you mostly by your nonverbal and your body language. And if there is ever a discrepancy between your words and your body language, what will people always believe more? Always believe your body language more. And so it's important. But most people, you'll understand some of the things I'm going to show you here in a second. We're going to make it interactive. I'm going to have some of you stand up and we'll do some stuff. But what happens is you might not know the science behind it. And I want you to understand the science behind it. And more importantly, I consider a lot of people, especially women in leadership and men in leadership, as coaches. And our job is to take this information back and now do something with it. So if you're standing up here and you're like, you know what, I feel like my body language is good, I got it together. Well, then what I hope you do is I hope you'll take this information back and coach someone else that's moving up in their career. I hope you have a child that has to go for an interview for a job and to show them when they have to show up with confidence and power, how do you show up that way? But could we all agree in this room there's a time to be powerful and confident, but then there's a time to be empathetic and collaborative? Can you agree with that? Yes? Well, those look completely different. And how we show up impacts our ability to really have influence. So I'm going to give you your first question. There was in the Atlantic, they asked people in leadership, specifically women, but I think every leader should read this article. The article is called The Confidence Gap, but they asked people, does confidence matter just as much as competence? So does your confidence matter just as much as your competence? So at your table, I want you to share your opinion, yes or no, and why you believe that, and we're going to talk about it. Does confidence matter just as much as competence? Share it at your table. All right, so let's talk about it. So I'm going to start, since I can hear a lot of the people up here, I'm going to start up here. So, by the way, most people will say the same answer. So when I say, does confidence matter just as much as competence, what do you think? Yes. Most people are like, oh, yes. Okay, they believe that. But I want to tell you why, and I want to understand your opinion about why you believe what you believe. So someone over here that says yes, why do you believe that your confidence matters just as much as your competence? What do you think? Okay, so confidence, yes. So confidence can display your competence. What else? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, you have to be confident in yourself, or they're going to read the fact, and you're never going to be. Someone said, like at this table, they're never going to believe you're competent if you don't have that confidence in yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an example. About a few years ago, I had this little cyst on my head, and I had to go to the doctor, and they were going to remove it. And I remember being in the doctor's office. I'm on my side. They put that little doily thing, whatever, on my head, right, the little hole. And I remember they numb my head. That is great, okay? And I remember them taking the scalpel. You can't make this up. They take the scalpel, they slice like the little part of my head open, and the nurse goes, oh no. No, you don't say that. You don't say that to someone after you slice their head. And I go, what do you mean, oh no? And then what happened is she goes, well, it's bleeding more than we thought it would. Well, that's concerning, okay? And you all, I went to a reputable place. I mean, I've done my homework. But it reminded me, right? Because the moment someone shows up they could be the most competent person in this room. But the moment they can't show up with confidence, what happens to how we perceive them? We perceive them having less competence when they might be the smartest person or the most talented person in this room. The research actually came out, if you read the article, it was specifically written for women in leadership, but what it says is that the more confident people showed up, now I'm going to talk about it later, I don't mean arrogant, right? The more confident, authentic confidence, the more confident people showed up, the more competent other people actually perceive them as. Now let me tell you, I believe that only works short term. Long term, if you try to show up with all this bravado and right, you try to show up with all this confidence, but you can't back it up, people are gonna be like, okay? They're gonna read through it, right? So long term, your credibility as a leader is on the line. But confidence, I always say this to people, confidence matters. And I don't want you to underestimate how important that really is. So you all know what confidence looks like. You just probably don't know there's all these power zones on your body that actually display confidence. So I'm going to show it to you, but I want you to grab this handout. Take my fancy picture and turn it over on the back. And on the back of that handout is you're going to complete this throughout the entire session. So we're going to do a couple things. So you already know the first kind of top two buckets. So what's the most honest part of the body? What is it? Feet. It's your feet. So write that in on the top right. And in the middle, we talked about how much percentage of communication is nonverbal? It's over what? 65. It's over 65%. So you got those two parts done. And so what I want to show you is I'm going to ask for what I loved about those founders that stood up here? I'm a big Brene Brown fan, and she talks about Teddy Roosevelt's quote about stepping into the arena. And what you all did as the founders, you all stepped into the arena maybe when some other women didn't. And so we honor you for that. And so I'm going to ask a couple of you to have some courage and be brave enough to step into the arena right now. So I want about 2 women at every table in this entire room to stand up. I'm going to ask you to do, now I'm not going to put you on the spot individually, but I am going to ask 2 women from every table to stand up. All right. I love that, yes. So this is where it's going to get good. Y'all better get your cell phones out. Okay, here we go, okay? So this is where I'm going to ask you to do a couple. Look, I love that half the women like volunteered. You need to stand up, okay? I didn't choose to stand up, okay? So I'm going to ask you all, I'm going to give you some just scenarios, and what I want you to, I don't want you to overthink it. I just want you to stand how you believe that scenario, how you would actually pose or what you would do with your presence. So here we go. Energetic women just came, and they are going to be on the cover of a national magazine, and they want you, they're like, congratulations, we want you to represent the cover of our national magazine. So I want you to stand in your most confident, badass pose that you possibly can, okay? Okay? And don't move. Good. All right. Don't move, girlfriend. I got you, okay? All right, so watch. I'm going to show you a few things. We're going to come back to... What happened to your pose, Angie? I loved it, okay? So what happens is, watch what happens. I'm going to come back to it, but a lot of the women in the room have their hands on their hips. There's a reason that they don't understand. Angie's over here is going crazy. Yes, okay? There's a reason why, when I think about confidence, right, that people take up a lot of space or kind of show their muscles. You don't know why. Yes, it feels confidence to you, but there's an actual reason why. There's another reason we'll talk about in a second when you got people that do cross their arms here. So does this look confident when I stand like this? It does. But what does it also look like? So it prevents connection. So there's a time and a place for everything. There's times on the airplane I cross right on over. I do not talk to me, right? God. Been talking to people all day, right? But then there's times, but I understand what it takes to look like confidence will show up. There's interesting that it'll come up here in a second. So I'm going to watch a few of you. All right, next one. So I want you to think about you're attending a networking event like you did. So I want you to show up confident, but I want it to be more like a casual confidence where you're just kind of hanging out with your group or you're in the networking event last night. Maybe you can grab a drink if you need it beside you. But how would you stand if it's more like casual confidence? You're not posing. What would that look like? And I want you to stand that way. All right, so here's what, this is interesting. Everyone just stands like wet noodles. Okay, here I am. It's good enough, okay? I will say, is it Mary? So Mary, when you started, you actually had your hand on the chair. Did you know, why did you do that? In your, Yeah, comfortable? It is, yeah. And I'll show you why later. She's doing something that is smart when you want to look confident but still kind of keep it casual. I did see people, there was a few people in here that do this, and I'm going to show you what that means here in a second and why you actually do that. So I want you to think about you're given a presentation, so maybe you had to stand up here, and you're nervous and maybe a little anxious. What would you be doing if you were standing and you were nervous and uncomfortable? How would that look? And I want you to do that. You're like, I've been doing it the whole time, okay? All right. All right, so here's what you see. So we see this a lot. What you see is you see a lot of people like wringing their hands. People play with their cuticles. People will start rubbing their face, playing with their hair, doing all this kind of stuff. There's a reason why you're doing that behavior, and I'll show you. I'm going to do one with everyone else in the room. So I want everyone to have a seat at your table, and I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine, I'm going to do the last one, that you're sitting in a space, and maybe you're in one of those meetings you've been in all day, and you're just kind of checked out and you're bored. That better not happen in this one, okay? Okay? But I want you to imagine you're bored, and how would you be sitting if you were kind of checked out and bored? And I want you to sit that way at your table. I promise you all, I wish that you could see this. This entire table just picked out their cell phones. So, yeah, you all can stop now, okay? So, right, what happens is there is, and I might forget to tell you this. I'm going to give you one, I'll give you one tip right now. There is one sign for boredom that hands down that we know when people have checked out. Which one is boredom versus which one is interest? And I don't have a podium to show you, but I'm going to try to do it. So if I had my hand here, and I'm looking at you like this, right? This one versus this one, which one's boredom? And I want you to know why. This is going to happen in every meetings you're in or even at home. So what am I doing here? Yeah, your head is really heavy, okay? And the moment that you have to start supporting your big head, what happens? Oh, you all, and we're clever and tricky about it. People do the thumb trick. They're going to be like, but you'll see the fat on the side of their face is going up. They've checked out. Now listen, I tell people all the time, if one or two people in your meeting or whatever are doing that, it's not a big deal. That is not about you. People might have been up in the morning getting stuff happening with kids. You don't know. But if the whole room is doing it, it's you, okay? It is you. So It's important to understand what that looks like. And I do this thing when I speak and do long workshops all day. I understand that's just how we are. We check in, we check out. So I always have sticky notes on every table. And the reason why is if I see someone checking out or something, I'll say, you know what, grab a sticky note, because what does it force them to do? They have to take their hand down, they have to re-engage and get involved again. But I have to understand, I got to be so fully present on this stage or in any type of meeting that I'm able to see and observe what's going on. First of all, with my body language, and then the body language of other people. We'll do one more because this is interesting for people in leadership. I want you to imagine you're at your table making a pitch, and you were trying to influence the people at your table, and you're making a recommendation on whatever your position is. How would you sit if you were trying to recommend and make your pitch to your table? How would you sit? Oh, Lord. All right, so we're going to talk about a few things. Now, I know you all heard this 1,000 times. By the way, this is only my pet peeve. There's one gesture that really bothers me sometimes, and I feel like they've done this. We'll talk a little bit about gender differences, not a lot, because I think body language is just body language, and we see it across all genders. But I feel like a lot of women in leadership have been taught this gesture, and I'll tell you, I think it's good, but then I'm going to give you a caveat, is when they've been taught to do this. Have you ever seen this? I hate it, okay? So here's why. Because it is actually a power move. It's called a steeple. It's the same thing as this, like a basketball. This one is just a steeple. But what happens is they've been to presentation skills program, whatever, they teach people to stand like this. Well, what happens is you actually do this when you're really passionate about something. You'll actually do that because you're not thinking about, oh, I'm passionate. But I saw a news anchor in Miami. I was in Miami one time, and she did this on live television. She goes, so I want you to think about authenticity, okay? She goes, so this is what I want to tell you. I should not have done this, but I took a video, I tweeted her and said, don't ever do that again, okay? Don't ever do that. That was when I was in my 20s. That was not good, okay? But what happened is, because it's not authentic, it looks forced, it looks contrived, it doesn't look natural when someone sits up here and is talking. You're going to do it when you're really passionate about what you're talking about, so let it be natural. But what happens is people will sit at the table like this. I've never seen someone just on their own just sit like this. That it just doesn't, it's not, because everything I want you to do, I'll never teach you to be, or I'll never coach you to be someone you're not. I will always want you to show up and be authentic, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But what happens is, you've heard this too, there are several women, especially in the front that I can see, where we put our hands under the table. And I think there's a time and a place to kind of keep your hands down, but I also think when you're trying to make your pitch, you want to show up as confident and powerful. And you're doing yourself a disservice when your hands are kind of under the table or lower. And I'm going to show you why. There are 4 power zones on your body that display power and confidence. So I'm going to show you what they are. I'm going to give you tons of examples. And I want you to start thinking about how would you, first of all, apply it in your own life, but then how can you take it back and help other people that you coach? So on your handout, there's a lady and this kind of superhero man and lady on the left-hand side. I want you to draw a line out from the 4 power zones. So power zone number 1, I want everyone to point right here. Everyone point to your neck dimple. You're like, I didn't even know I had one. There you go, okay? So it's your throat area. So that's going to be the first power zone, is your throat. By the way, this is one of the gender differences, especially women that I've coached. When they get nervous and uncomfortable, what do they do a lot? A lot of times they will actually cover up their neck and start rubbing their neck and stuff like this. The moment you do that or you lower, you've weakened your power. So I want you to think about that. I'll show you why. Raise your hand. Now let's be honest, moment of truth. Don't be ashamed. How many of you have ever watched America's Next Top Model? Raise your hand. I know you're out there, okay? And listen, I don't think Tyra Banks has probably ever been through body language training, but she has definitely looked at enough photos to understand what confidence and power looks like. What does she always tell those women about their necks? She says, elongate your neck. And so what she means, right, is keeping this open as you communicate to people. So when I show up this way and look like this is going to look a lot more confident than the moment I cross over and do something like this. It's understanding, how do I want to show up in this moment? If I want to be collaborative and think about just listen to you and let you have your moment, I might do this. But when it's my turn to speak and I want to show up confident, I'm going to keep this part of my body open. Number 2, it's going to be your torso. So I want you to draw a line out from your torso, and I'll give you an example. So I want you to imagine, can I borrow your book right here, this black book? I'll show you. So watch what happens. If we all got on an elevator right now and we did not know each other and you had something in your hands without even thinking, because the limbic part of your brain, what would you actually probably do with this? You will not even think about it, but you will probably take it and cover it up over your body. So why do you do that psychologically? Yeah, stranger danger. I don't know him, right? Okay? I don't know what he's going to do, all right? And so no offense, okay? But what happens is psychologically you don't know someone, and so your body is like fight or flight, right? So I'm going to protect myself and protect the vulnerable parts of my body. So that is what you're doing psychologically. And so I want you to think about how that shows up. When I look right here, when I keep those two power zones open, I'm going to come across a lot more confident and powerful than if I was to do something like this. And I'm going to show you why. So the third one that you never thought you'd ever have to write down in your life, and we're going to talk about it, is your naughty bits. So write that down, and I'll tell you why. I know, get the laughter out. I'll explain why, okay? Look, if there's one thing you won't forget at this conference, it's naughty bits, okay? So here's why. When I asked a lot of you to stand up, and I said, I want you to stand up like you're giving a presentation, you're nervous and uncomfortable, how did a lot of those people around your table, how did people stand? They actually take their hands and they stand like this. And a lot of people do. This does not look nearly as confident as when you stand up and you keep all those power zones open. I'm going to show you a couple things. So, can I borrow this chair? You slide this chair to me. So watch what happens, men and women. Now women, it's even more important just from a leadership role, because just from etiquette, you've been taught, right, you're going to cross your legs when you sit. So it's even more important for you that from the waist up, that when you want to show up confident, powerful, that you maintain all of that. So from the torso area and your neck area, that you keep that open. But watch, so men especially, when they're really comfortable and they're sitting in a room, how often do they sit in a chair when they're really comfortable? Yep, they're like, yep, and they just go on and sit in the chair like this, okay? Okay? Men would never sit like that if they were uncomfortable or nervous. It's just how we are psychologically hardwired. So the moment we get uncomfortable, we cross over. And I'll give you one final example when it goes with here. So the last one is your feet. So look at me before you write anything down. Which one looks more confident? Me with my feet standing together, talking to all of you like this, or the moment I put my feet apart and talk to you like this? It's apart. And I'm going to show you why, but I want you to give you a second to write that one down. So your feet are the fourth power zone on your body. And here's why. Here's the formula that I always tell people. Your confidence and your power equals space plus height. The more space you take up, the more height you have, you will always appear more confident to other people. So the more space you take up, the more height you have, the more confident you will appear to others. All right? So I gave you some famous women leaders, and I always, by the way, when I asked all of you to stand in that really confident pose at the very beginning, how did most people stand? Which one does it look like? Oh, you gave it to Beyonce. Right? You did, right? There's a reason why she does it, because in that moment, right, here's why. If power equals space plus height, the moment you stand like this is as big as you can possibly get. Unless you do this, and that's awkward. No one would be like, what is she doing, okay? So the moment you stand like this, even with one hand, it is as big as you can possibly get. You look really confident. You look powerful. Oprah, by the way, one of the things I love about her, one of my favorite people I'm going to talk about in a second is Diane Sawyer. And she knows when to show up confident, and she knows when to show up empathetic. Well, watch what happens with Oprah. When she sits in a chair and there are arms on the chair, she very rarely puts her arms inside the chair. She takes up the space that she has because she knows it's going to make her look more confident as she's communicating with people. I'm going to show you one other one that I didn't talk about. Watch my head. From which one is going to look more confident? If you're disciplining a child, okay, or you're like getting on your kid, you've had a bad day, maybe your nerves are short, right? And you said, I said stop doing that. Is that one more confident, or I said stop doing that? You all? That doesn't even feel right, okay? Because in that moment, right, keeping your head straight forward, like when you mean business, you look forward to people. And you said, listen, this is what we're going to do, and we're done talking about it. Or it's assertiveness, or to say, you know what, I'm really proud of you. This is confidence when we look directly at people. But there's going to be a time and a space not to do that. So I want you to start thinking about, when is the right time to show up confident and powerful? I don't ever speak behind a podium, but if I had to speak behind a podium, there's a couple of rules I would coach people on. Why do you think I don't speak behind a podium? It's not that there's anything wrong with it, but what do you think, for me as a speaker, why do I not speak behind a podium? What do you think? Well, I want to know what was said. What was said over there? Oh, covers my naughty beds. Okay. You all. It's true. I swore I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it. So I asked my mom. So I was like, Mom, you know, I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was like, I'm going to go speak to 900 women. I go, you have any advice for me? This is why I love her. She goes, oh, just please make sure your zipper's not broken. I'm like, out of all the advice you could give me, that's what you say? But I'm like, but it's good advice, okay? Good advice, all right? So I think about, yes, you can't see all the power zones, but what does it also prevent? Connection. Because it takes a lot more confidence and power for me to step out from behind it and have nothing in front of me. This is a lot more vulnerable because there's eyes and there's people looking at you, where there's safety behind the podium. There's nothing wrong with it. Just for me, I know everything I teach is about connection, and this is the ability for me to connect at a deeper level. Another thing, if I had to present behind a podium, what could I do that could still give me the best of both worlds? What could I do? Yeah, so I'm going to tell you another story later, but I have the opportunity and the privilege, starting last year, to coach Miss Kentucky before she goes to Miss America. And when I coach her, one of the things we talk about is sometimes, if it's right, to step beside the podium and actually connect with people when you're in those interviews or when you're speaking to large groups of people. And you can easily even put your hand on the side of the podium and have the mic this way. So you're anchoring yourself to a solid surface. So anytime you anchor yourself to a surface, you actually assume the mass of that surface. So if I was looking at a wall, if I had my hand on the wall, I'm going to look stronger because I'm attaching myself to something that's pretty strong. So understanding how to use our body language to impact other people's perceptions of how we're showing up. And you'll see all of those people right there, whether it's Meryl Streep or Carly Fiorina. When they gesture, they usually keep it within the frame of their body, but they use their gestures. They take up space and height. The only other thing I would say is, I know I'm not sitting at your table, but watch this. When I coach people, especially even if you have kids, a lot of times if they're at a table, they'll keep themselves pretty small. And just from a gender difference perspective, what we know from research is a lot of times men, by the way, when they sit at a table, what do they typically do? They take up a lot of space. They're like dogs, like claiming their land, okay? Like, this is my area. And so what happens is we take up space. What happens is a lot of times women, from what we know from research, don't. They keep their stuff in nice, neat little piles. It's not that you should not do that, but what we also understand is when we wanted to, if I was to sit like this and I was sitting at the table, I want you to know in this rule now, what could I do just to show up more confident if I wanted to, instead of sitting like this? I could easily just take one arm and even put one arm on the table. And now I'm showing up, all of these power zones open. I'm taking up more space. Sometimes it might not feel comfortable for you, but sometimes I put one arm in the back of the chair and I actually talk to people like this. So I'm taking up space. It's about understanding. You know, my pastor one time said this. He goes, you can't meet people where they are when you think you're above them. And so sometimes I had to always tell myself, I have to understand what the situation calls for. I had an opportunity to coach a CEO, and when I went in there, it was the most arrogant, condescending person I have ever met in my career. But what I knew is people typically like people like themselves. So I didn't need to show up arrogant and condescending, but what I was not going to do is be meek and mild. And I was going to show up with confidence. And I looked right at this person at the end of our meeting and I said, I think we have a very different philosophy on leadership. And you should not hire me into your company if you do not align with this, because I don't think you're going to be happy with it. And they ended up hiring me, so that was good, all right? But what happens is I'm not gonna shrink so other people feel secure or insecure. I'm gonna say, in this moment, if I was to meet somebody where they are, I know I need to show up as confident, and I understand how to use and flex my body language to meet these people where they are. That's what it's about, all right? So let me take like 30 seconds or a minute. I'm going to move on and talk about collaboration and empathy because it looks completely different. Any questions from you all that you have for me on just confidence and power? If you were sitting there thinking with your table, when it comes to confidence and power, any questions you have for me? Don't be shy to yell it out. Yeah. So should they cross their legs or not? I will never be that person that tells you yes or no. What I would say is, I think there's nothing wrong with crossing your legs. I think part of it is etiquette and just what feels comfortable. But you can still show up confident and powerful by sitting like that, by keeping all of this open. And to say, you know what, the thing I think we need to do is this. It's also, the words are important too. I don't want to discount how important the tone is and how your words are, but I also understand the importance of your body language as you deliver that message. if we have time, at the end of this, what I'll do is I always tell people, I don't want to coach you to be someone you're not, so I talk about your emotional wake. Everyone in this room leaves an emotional wake everywhere they go, and they're going to leave one at their table this week. So part of that is you got to get clear about how you want to show up, and then my job is to coach you to say, how do you be more of that person? I don't agree with any body language person that gets up here and says, do this gesture, don't do that gesture, because you're going to be in the conversation at that point just thinking, what do I do? How do I show up? And I don't think that's healthy. I do think it's okay to understand these rules because it's like working out. When you go to the gym and you first start working out, it doesn't feel natural, and it's hard, and it's difficult. Well, sometimes learning these concepts that you're going to learn all throughout today and tomorrow, as you're doing this, it's going to take some work, and you're going to have to have enough self-awareness to see yourself in the conversation and say, you know what, I want to show up more confident, so today I'm just going to focus on keeping this part of my body open, or I'm going to really make sure from my torso up, that I'm showing up confident. So I don't think it's a right or wrong. I still think it's fine that I still think you can cross your legs and still show up confident and powerful. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. So you can't grow anymore. So listen, this is where so how many of you all, and I don't know if I say this, I think it's at the end, how many of you have ever heard this in your career where somebody has been coaching and mentoring you and they tell you, I want you to go in and I want you to own the room? How many of you have heard that? Raise your hand. It's awful advice. Okay, I hate it. Okay, you're going to find out why when we get to the end, why I believe it's awful advice. Because what we tell people is stop being yourself. Go in there, put on a mask, go in there and fake it till you make it. And I hate it because what we teach leaders is inauthentic. And then what happens is they make it and then they don't know how to be authentic. And so what I would say is, so I teach people it's not about owning the room, it's about owning your energy. And it's about owning your space. So there's no reason at 4'8" or 5'1", you can still take up space and own your space. Yes, someone might be taller beside you and someone else, but you can still, don't shrink so other people feel secure around you. Stand in your own confidence and stand in your ability to take up space and know how you need to show up. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, I think there was one more person. Anybody here? Yeah, please. So if you didn't hear, she goes, how do you kind of counteract someone that maybe is trying to intimidate you, right? Because of their, whether it's their insecurity or whatever. Is that correct? Yeah. So here's my first response. Refuse to own his insecurity. Okay? So I would say that to anyone. I've coached a lot of people in my career, and in my coaching world, they say this. There's some people in life, listen, you never know what someone's going through. And I always think sometimes people make a comment, and I'm like, I'm not even in that comment. That had nothing to do with me. That is all about you and your own baggage. Every one of you that walked in this door, every one of you walked in with a bunch of invisible baggage that no one in this room gets to see. And you're dragging it everywhere you go. And you're leading, you're loving, and you're communicating. And you're filtering everything that I'm saying right now through your baggage. And I can't own that for you. But what I can own is how I deliver my message. I'm not going to shrink so you feel more secure. Now, if I know that something's not going right with the relationship, I'm not afraid to sit down and say, hey, this relationship's really important to me, and I feel like there's something going on. Let's talk about it. I'm not afraid. I always tell people, this is another topic besides body language, but I say, I love you enough to tell you the truth. And I think a lot of times we don't love people enough to tell them the truth because we're afraid of the reaction on the other side of the message. And so understanding it's not about not saying anything. I think we have to take responsibility for how we say it. I just had the opportunity to interview Taco Bell's president of international business. And I asked her, I go, what do you think is one of the biggest things that holds leaders back? And she said to me, I believe they let their intensity get in their way. And so what happens is people become so passionate, or they don't think about the intensity behind their words. Or think about this in your marriage or your relationship. If you go home and you ask your partner to take out the trash, and maybe they don't, right? And you do this. Oh my gosh, every time I do this, you never follow through. This is what happens every time. Look, y'all, that's knowing laughter. That's me, okay? Because what happens, you do that enough with your intensity and your presence. What do you tell that person? It's not safe to tell me the truth. what you teach people by your presence, it is no longer safe to come and tell me the truth about what you're experiencing and feeling. And what will they do? They will stop telling you the truth. Let me give you one final example. Raise your hand if you have kids in the room. Okay, so a lot of you have kids. So I use this example a lot, and it's going to go in a second into, I'm going to talk about connection and empathy, but here's what. I want you to imagine your kid's being bullied at school. And if your kid is being bullied at school, they come home and he or she is crying. A lot of parents, and it's especially men because of how their brain is wired, but it's women too, what are you kind of hardwired to do in that moment? Your kid's upset, crying, what do you want to do? You said kill the other person? Okay. Not that kind of workshop, okay? Okay. So what happens is a lot of times we want to fix it, right? We want to fix people. We want to say, well, then this is what you're going to do. We're going to go to the school. We're going to call the parents. We're going to do this. And unfortunately, what I tell everyone, people don't need fixing. They need to be heard. People don't need fixing. They just want to be heard. And what happens is so many times we don't let ourselves be heard. I'm going to show you the next quote. If there was one quote I could teach the rest of my life, it would be this. Oprah said, everyone in life just wants to know three things. That is it. They want to know, do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I say mean anything to you at all? That is it, everyone. Your customers, your kids, your partner, your stranger on the street, everyone in life just wants to know, did you see me? Do you get me? Does what I'm going through mean anything to you? So I'm going to play it back to your kids. Your kid comes home, is crying, is upset on the floor. In that moment, before you try to fix anything, all they want to know is, listen, do you see me? Do you get me? Does what I'm going through mean something? And when we try to fix them and take care of the situation, what do we do with everything they're feeling emotionally? We completely dismiss it. And we teach them to fix themselves versus to feel themselves and to work through the feelings. And we know you can't get through anything until you learn to sit in the mess. And so what happens is they stop feeling and they just start going on. And then there's a quote in the country, I don't know who said this, but I love it. It says, we all get addicted to the thing that takes away our pain. Everyone. We all get addicted to the thing that takes away our pain. And so what happens is when kids don't feel whole or they lack self-confidence or they don't have an outlet to really express themselves in a safe environment, they will find an environment or an outlet that validates them. So if they post provocative photos on social media and they get hundreds of likes, what do? That feels good. And so they keep doing it because that's the space where they get validation. And so our presence has to be a place for them to say, it's okay. So I'm going to give you an example how I would address that situation. In that moment, what do you think your kid needs to hear from you above anything else? Okay, it sucks and you're loved. So here's an example. Now this is what I spent we spent over 300 hours in coaching just practicing the skills and techniques. I'm going to give you one, but it's with body language, but I'm going to give you the vocal part. So this is what I would say to him or her. Just say, of course you're upset. Because you used to be so excited to get out of bed every day, go to school and be with your friends and play and learn, and you loved your teacher, and now you've got to get up every day and you don't even want to go because you're afraid of what this jerk's going to do to you, and you'd rather just not go anymore. And they look up at you and say, exactly. In the moment someone says, yes, what do they tell you? You see me. You get me, and what I'm saying doesn't mean I'm not crazy for feeling the way that I'm feeling. Please do not underestimate this week those 9 women around you or however many women around you. They are going through something that they are not going to tell you. And your presence alone just says, woman, I see you. I hear you and what you're going through. You don't even have to tell me, but I'm going to be here and what you're going through matters to me. Understand the power of your presence. And I'll come back to that at the end and give you one final thing to think about. But I want you to do one thing as a table. I want you to think about a time this week. This table did it perfectly over here a second ago, okay? I want you to think about a time you weren't connecting this week. Think about it might have just been because you were busy or what else, but really think about a time that you weren't connecting. Maybe it was on a plane, maybe it was here in this room or last night at the networking event with your family. And I want you to think about what got in your way from really connecting with them. And I want you to share at your table. So I'm going to give you like a minute or two to share that. What was a time you did not connect this week and what prevented you from actually connecting with that person? I'll have you share it. I'm going to eavesdrop. How we doing? Good? All right, so let's talk about it. So I feel like I've kind of neglected this side. So over here, I want to hear from you. So when you think about, I don't need to know the story about why you didn't connect, but I do want to hear from you. What prevented you from connecting? What got in the way? What would you say? So just tired? Did you say tired? Yeah, sometimes we're just busy and we get exhausted, and then we're kind of, from an energy perspective, we don't have a lot to offer people. What else? What'd you say? Oh, your emails, okay, yeah. So emails, what else over here? Okay, to-do list, yeah. We got stuff we got to do and check off. What is it? So yeah, just not feeling well. And over here, any other things that have not been said? So, did you say the pool? Oh, school. She's like, I got it, the pool, okay? I was like, girl, it's a rough life, okay? Yeah. So school, and you got things going on. You said the environment. What about the environment?
Like last night, for instance, at the fall, where everyone was trying to kind of intermingle, it was very hard, I felt, to do that. One, you got the music playing loud.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people interacting, and everyone was kind of sticking to their grooves.
Yeah.
Kind of, it takes you back to walk up to like a table full of people who all know each other.
Sure.
You're trying to, get to know them over loud music.
Yeah.
Things happening.
Yeah.
Kind of disconnection.
Yeah, what is going on over there? I love this. Yeah, I love that. Is somebody presenting over there? Should I know about something? Is my zipper down? Okay, so yeah, so we talk about the environment, especially for sometimes, like, on stage, I probably come across extroverted, but I'm very introverted. So after this is over, I want to be alone, like I got to recharge. And sometimes introverted, sometimes, not all the time, it can be intimidating to go into a group of people that you don't know. I hate networking stuff too, right? So how do you sometimes do that? But it's necessary. Doesn't mean you got to like it. It's necessary. And it's also about, what I would also just say is sometimes it's not even about saying anything. It's just being there, right? And just, again, that your presence makes the difference. Hey, I saw you there. I'm glad you attended. And just being able to say that to people. And I think that's another reason why in this event, right, they set you with people you don't know to go, you know what? You have an opportunity to really get some more people and get to know some other things about other people. So I want to show you this. I'm going to ask for a volunteer in just a second. But I want to show you what it looks like and how empathy and collaboration actually looks different than confidence and power, because it is completely different. So someone over here, I need a brave volunteer just to come up here with me and just give Donna some love. All right. So I'm just going to show you from a couple of things from a body language perspective of how this is going to. Donna, sit down. All right. So watch what happens. So Donna, face me with your chair. So I'm going to show you a couple things. So you all know some of this because you've been taught about active listening, all this, but I'm going to show you some of the science. So I don't want you to tell them what you think I want you to say. I want you to tell them what you really believe, all right? So half the room a second ago just said your face and your eyes are the most honest part of the body. So everything I teach is about energy and connection. So watch this. Does this energy, Donna, with my feet facing this way but my head facing this way, does this energy feel different than if I actually just show up and actually talk to you like this?
I like that better.
Yeah. The energy between us feels completely different. And so what happens is, when you think about showing up for people and about active listening, what are some of the things that you've actually been taught? So I just gave you the first one, is I would tell you, always point your feet to people, because watch what happens. If your boss comes into your office and you're working, you will do one of two things. You're sitting here typing, and you have one of two options. When your boss comes in, or he or she, you will go, hey, how's it going? And you'll smile and you'll look nice with your face and you might even nod your head, but you don't move your feet. What are you actually doing more focused on? You're more focused on what's going on. And so it doesn't mean it's right or wrong or bad or good, but I know when people don't turn their feet, they're not inviting me in the conversation. I don't have to create a story about it. I trust that whatever they're working on is probably important to them. I'll say, hey, I just want to say hello. I'll catch you later. Because if you really were interested in the conversation, you'd be like, hey, come on in. Let's talk, let's talk, sit down. And you would face them. I did a workshop for a group of women, and I had a mom come up to me later, and she comes up to me and she goes, thank you. She goes, as a mom, I've gotten so busy being busy. My kids go to school all day, like you said over there. They come home, and I'm helping them with homework, cooking dinner, getting them ready for bed. She goes, I don't even know if I even stop and just face my own kids and just say, how was your day? Because I'm so busy multitasking and busy being busy. How many of you in this room, women, ever read the article? It went viral from a mom to her daughter called The Day I Stopped Saying Hurry Up. Anyone read that? If you have not, I highly recommend you read that article. It's written from a mom to her daughter, and she said it was the day I stopped saying hurry up. She goes, I started my day with it. Hurry up, get dressed. Hurry up, brush your teeth. Hurry up, get on the bus. I ended my day with it. Hurry up, do your homework. Hurry up, do this. And she goes, I think I'm saying the words hurry up more than I love you. And she saw how her daughter started taking her characteristics and passing them on to her younger daughter. It's a really powerful article. But watch what happens. If I was to slow down from my busyness and show up for Donna, you don't have to show up for everyone in your life. But when you want to show up for people, I want you to know how to use your body language. So you've already said, one thing I would do with Donna is I would point my feet to Donna. What else would I do? Okay. So I lean in. Now you all know this, but why do we lean in? What's the perception?
So you're listening.
Yeah, because we get closer to the things that we like, we get further from the things that we don't like. So imagine this, all right? So Donna, let's face this way. Let's go on the plane ride together, all right? So come on. I got that darn middle seat, y'all, all right? So imagine, all right? Yeah, she took up the armrest. Of course she did, okay? So imagine, you're framing the naughty bits and everything. This is good, Donna. So imagine that if I'm on here, I know this person, but I don't know Donna. Where will my feet cross over to mostly? Generally, they will cross to the person you know, because what I have done now is I've blocked this person. Stranger danger with Donna, right? So what you're doing is the vulnerable parts of my body are facing the person I'm most comfortable with. Now, if it's a really long trip, you might end up crossing them over just because your legs get tired. But generally, I do this crazy thing in the plane that if I do want to talk, and I can see this person will generally, when you sit down, they will cross the other way as well, because you'll actually face away. So if I'm in a conversational mode, I'll be like, so where are you going? And over time, what happens, the moment they feel safe, they will either uncross their legs and they will start doing this. And I know from a communication perspective, I'm kind of playing this game, but it's like, I got them, right? They would never do that had they not felt safe enough to do that. So part of our job is to be able to show up for people and do that. Imagine though, you can tell, by the way, relationships, you can tell when it goes well or not. Because if we were on the way to the movies or church or wherever you want to go, right? And Don and I, we're going to date Donna, okay? Okay. This is only a scenario, okay? Okay, so Donna and I are dating. If it's going really well and we're in the... Okay? Okay. If Donna and I are... You were a great example. I'm glad you raised your hand. Yeah. If Donna and I are dating and it's going really well in the movie theater, like, how would you sit? We'd be really close. You'd probably be touching. You would do that. But on the way there, if you got into an argument and you just want to rip off the other person's face, you're going to have to sit close together, but you'll know at church and stuff or the movies because they're probably going to be they're going to create as much space from themselves as humanly possible. So we know that when we really feel connected with people, we get closer. We close that space. So let's go back to our scenario. All right. So if we were looking at each other and I was talking to her, you're coaching her, sitting down with your partner, having a conversation, it doesn't matter. So you all said I would lean in, I would actually point my feet towards that person so I'm showing up. What else would I do?
Eye contact.
Okay, eye contact, this is big. Out of 100% eye contact, how much should you maintain out of 100%? Not 100, it's creepy, no one likes it, okay? No one likes it, okay? Because, listen, I didn't put the picture on the screen, but I hope this person never sees this video, but I call it Gary Busey creepy. Like, you know, he's like this. Like, yeah, like it's over the top, like too much eye intensity, so it's too intense. Because what happens is this, here's what the research says. If all we do is look at someone 100% of the time and we never look away, what is it actually considered, especially in business? Okay, it's intimidation. And so what happens is, if I never look, and some people just don't even have the awareness that they're doing it, right? So, but what happens is, if we only look at someone 100% of the time, it comes across as intimidation. So the research, you don't need to know the number, but I'm going to give it to you. The research says we should maintain between 60 and 70% consistent eye contact. Anything above 80 is considered intimidation. So watch this. If I'm coaching Donna or I'm talking to Donna, and maybe she's going through something kind of hard, and she maybe even gets emotional, what do you think I do with my eye contact? I actually break eye contact. Why do you all think that I do that? Why do you think in that moment I break eye contact and stop looking at Donna? Yeah. Part of what we have to do as leaders is meet people where they are. And so what I also know is I create space in the conversation for her to feel comfortable and to give her the space that she needs to kind of think through her thoughts and not feel like it's a fire drill. Could you imagine if someone just kept looking at you as you got emotional and be like, here it comes? Like, no, like, don't look at me, right? Give me a moment to kind of think and collect myself. So sometimes I'll look down as Donna's kind of talking or going through it, and then I'll look back and I'm saying, Don, I'm really sorry you had to go through that. I didn't know that happened to you. So let's talk about it. And I lower my tone and I meet her where she is, right? There's one other gesture I really want you to know. So on the handout, we talk about collaboration and empathy. I want you to understand, it's your feet pointing towards someone. It's having between 60 and 70% eye contact. It's leaning in because we get closer to the things we like. There's one other gesture that when it comes to empathy, I really want you to know. What do you think it is? Yes, you got it. So here's what happens. This is the biggest gender difference between men and women. And I want to show you. Women, what does this mean? I ask men in my workshops before women answer. I always ask them, what does it mean when you're talking to someone like Donna and if a woman tilts and nods her head? Generally, what does this mean if it's going slow? Okay? It typically means what? That I understand you. I understand. I get you. Tell me more about that. When you sit there and you nod, you're like, I get it. By the way, when I ask most men what this means, what do you think it means? What do you think they tell me? They're like, oh, I'm in trouble. I'm like, this is why you're going to get divorced. That is not what it means, right? Okay? Because now, it's different if they're doing this. Okay? This is very different. Anyone that's doing it fast, what does it mean? It means hurry it up, speed it along, right? Which is why you're going to have people this week, it's human nature, you're going to be in this room all day in meetings. You'll have people that sit there and they nod quick or they'll move their feet like this and do stuff like this. What happens is, I always say, take responsibility for your energy, because how is that impacting the person you're talking to? How is it impacting the speaker on the stage? Is that you doing it back there? We're going to talk about it when I'm done, okay? So what happens is, I would tell people, is when you tilt and nod your head, this is a very, from research, a lot of men typically don't do it. It's a very submissive gesture, but because we know that dominance and this looking confident, powerful is straight ahead. But what I tell people, I've had men that I've coached and they'll say, well, I'm not tilting and nodding my head. And I say, I don't care what you do, because it's not about me. I'm never going to tell you how to show up. But you just sat here and told me at the very beginning of this workshop, there's a time to be powerful and confident, and then there's a time to be collaborative and empathetic. And in that moment, if you say you want to show up collaborative and empathetic, you would tilt your head and look at Donna and say, wow, I'm sorry for doing that. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. And that comes across completely different and makes it safe. All right, give Donna some love. Thank you, Donna. All right, so I want to end with a couple things. Thank you. I want to end by doing like the next 10 minutes with this. I am a big believer, after coaching so many thousands of people across this country, there is one trait above all other traits that will prevent you from connecting with people, and it will erode your credibility over time. So at your table, I want you all to agree on it. So I'm going to give you about a minute or two to say, if you could say above all traits, this one trait specifically will erode your ability to really connect, and it'll eventually erode your credibility. What do you think that number one trait is? And share it at your table and why you believe that. All right, so let's talk about it. So I know I'm really passionate, but anyways, but I'm really passionate about this because I believe that this will erode, you as a leader, you can still be successful money-wise with it. But as a leader, I think it will completely erode your character, your credibility, and you will not be a great communicator when you demonstrate this. So I'm going to start all the way. We're going to kind of go across. But over in the far thing, what if there was only one trait above all other traits? What do you think it is? Okay, rolling your eyes. Okay, what else? Okay, so not listening. What else? Okay, arrogance. So being dishonest. What else? How many of you said dishonesty? A lot of people in the room typically say that. It's not the answer, but I think this is actually why people lie and are dishonest, and I'll show you in just a second. What else? So lack of trust, insincerity. On this side of the room, what do you think? Arrogance. Okay, so not being present. What else? Yeah, so they're incongruent when the words and body language don't match. Here's what I believe it is, and I think there's some research to back it up. It is ego. And yeah, we knew that, okay? Okay. So in the last 10 minutes, I'm going to tell you a couple quick things. One of the top leadership books in 2016 was by Ryan Holiday. It was on a lot of reading lists, and it was called Ego is the Enemy. And listen, as a coach, one thing I know is this. We all define words differently based on what we've experienced in our lives. So the moment I say intimacy to you, you define that word differently than I do based on our experiences. So when I say ego, you're defining that word probably very differently. So I want us to get on the same page. So Ryan Holiday actually defines the word ego as this unhealthy belief in your own importance. And so, because I want everyone to have authentic confidence, and to your point, to kind of stand up in your space no matter how tall you are and own your presence. But this unhealthy belief in your own importance will really get in people's way. So instead of me telling you about what it is, I got to tell you, I've done this workshop for CEOs. I coach NCAA athletes all the way to teenagers. The same two people come up every time. So when you think about famous people, leaders, pop culture, doesn't matter. When you think about people with really high ego, who do you think of? Okay? Okay? Okay, she got real passionate about LeBron James over here. Okay? It's good. Who else? Okay, we always hear, so take politics out, I don't care. So they say Donald Trump, and who in pop culture? Kanye West. It's the same people, all right? So what I'm going to show you, I don't care who you think of that has high ego, but I want you to think of someone right now that you say, when I think of that person, that's the person that has really high ego. I'm going to show you what he or she does. Now, let me say this. Every one of us in this room has ego. So if you're sitting there going, well, this part don't apply to me, you're the one I worry about, okay? Okay? It's you, boo, okay? It's you, okay? So here's what I want you to know. I want you to know how it shows up. So think about Kanye West. I always go back to that moment with Taylor Swift. We're still talking about that, where I am, okay? So watch what happens. What do those people do from their actions that make you believe they have high ego? What do they actually do? Okay? So they interrupt, condescending, what else? They tell you you're wrong. Everyone do this in this room. I want you to take one hand, and I want you to cover up one of your eyes. Okay? And I want you to take your other hand, and I want you to point to a dot or a spot on the wall or the ceiling that's not moving. So point to a stationary dot with your other hand. All right? Now, I want you to take your hand that's covering up your eye and let it down. And what happens to the spot? If you do it right, it should move, okay? But what happens is, imagine that is kind of your truth. Look, you're still practicing. I love that, okay? You're good, okay? So imagine that is your truth. Like, that is my dot, right? What people with high ego believe is that my truth is the only truth, and if you don't agree with it, you're an idiot. Which is why people don't talk about politics, religion, spirituality, because my truth is the only truth, and if you don't agree with it, you're an idiot. Instead of saying, why can't we honor my truth, but at the same time honor your truth as well? But people with high ego won't do that. And so what else will they not do? They believe, so I want you to write this down in the bottom left. So it's ego. We talk about what erodes credibility. It's ego. One thing is they believe their truth is the only truth. What else do they do? What do you think? Yeah, so sometimes, I guess, from maybe this bravado, this overconfidence, they'll kind of encompass your space and kind of get too close, and so there's no personal distance. What else will they do? Speak over you because they have to be heard. In organizations, you probably work with people like this. Do they take accountability or not? They're not going to take accountability, and they're not going to be open to feedback. And why is that? Because they believe that they are right. I'm going to say this. In my 20s, I had a super high ego because I was really insecure with who I was. And what happened is I got into corporation, and I started getting crazy results. And what happened is I put my self-worth in my job, in my career, and I kept getting rewarded for it. And I could even bully people in the organization, but as long as I got results, they kept giving me bonuses and accolades, and I kept moving up. And what I learned organizationally is we reward bad behavior when we don't hold people accountable to how they get results. And so, that's why I'm so passionate. When I tell people, take responsibility for your energy, it is that behavior is unacceptable. But when we don't talk to people within our organizations about how they show up and about how they're getting results, we're rewarding the bad behavior. And so there's another way. And so a couple things I want you to know when it comes to ego is these are the key points. Number one is it's always rooted in judgment and criticism. Watch this, and we all have it, because watch what happens. If you were on the interstate coming here and maybe someone cut you off to get off the exit really quick, let's be honest, what's your go-to reaction sometimes when you got cut off? Let's be honest. Yeah, you might honk the horn, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you might flick them the bird, what else? And then, because what you do is you create a story. People with high ego create lots of stories, because in your head you say, oh my God, I can't believe they just did that to who? To me. They don't know you, okay? They don't. It was never about you, but you made it about you, right? And what happens is, ego is always rooted in judgment and criticism. Listen, in my 20s when I was sitting there, I would sit here because I felt really good as a speaker or a trainer. And imagine, when I was really insecure inside, but I masked it with this big confidence and arrogance, I would be sitting right where you're sitting, and a speaker would come up here and speak. And if I have really high ego in the audience, what do you think would be going through my head as this person started to speak? What is this young person going to teach me that I don't already know? Oh my gosh, I could do this so much better. And what I realize now as I'm 37 is that I spent so much time actually judging and criticizing people, and I missed tons of opportunities to learn because I was too busy judging it. And that was my own ego. I got in my own way, and I didn't take responsibility for my presence. The other thing is they ignore feedback. They don't take accountability. They're unaware of the impact they leave on other people. So in their marriages, they are completely unaware, or their relationships, they're unaware of how their behavior is actually impacting their ability to create trust and connection with their partner. And so they'll blow up, or they'll do things. And then I always tell people this, taking responsibility for your energy doesn't mean you always get it right? It means that when we don't get it right, we slow down and we make it right. And I'll give you one final quick story. I was in Toronto Airport. It was really early in the morning, years ago, and I had just gotten through customs and got through the little security thing, stepped in, and the TSA agent is checking the man's backpack in front of me. And then all these bins were lined up along the tray, so no one's bag could come out. So I actually went, so she finishes, hand the man his backpack, and I go to slide all the trays down. And I don't know why, but when I went to go slide all the trays down, the TSA agent goes like wham, and grabs the bins, so I couldn't move any of them. And I snapped up, my head, oh, no, she did not, okay? And I'm from Kentucky, and sometimes we can be passive aggressive and say, bless your heart. And I was like, so in my head, my ego kicked in without even thinking about it, and I was like, well, I'll show her. And what did I do? I took every bin, I stacked them on one another, I slid them down, and I said, fine, I'll do your job for you. That didn't go so well, okay? I do not recommend that to TSA, okay? And I'll never forget. So we're yelling in the airport, and I get my backpack, I take 15 steps down the terminal, and I stopped. Because I teach this for a living. Take responsibility for your energy. And everything that I stand up here and teach, I did not represent myself. So I knew I had one of two options. I would either go back and apologize and own my part. I'm not responsible for her and her insecurity, but I'm responsible for how I delivered my message. Or I would just go around the rest of my day, and I know how I am. I would obsess about it and be like, I shouldn't have done that, blah, 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 blah. All right? So I decided to go back, y'all. Okay, you don't like that, y'all? So I decided to go back. So I'm making my way back to her, thinking, I got this. It's going to be okay. So I get up to her. It's not going to be okay? So I go up to her, and she's turned around, and I go, excuse me, ma'am, and I'm not being dramatic. She goes, what? And I said, I need to tell you I'm sorry. You did not deserve the way that I talked to you, and I feel like I owe you an apology. And she says to me, well, I don't accept your apology. Had I not had it together at that point, right? This is where emotional intelligence kicks in. Had I not had it together, what would I have done? I would have karate chopped her esophagus, okay? I would have, okay? I would have. So what happened is at that point, I had it together, and I told her, I said, man, I go, you don't have to accept my apology, but I still feel like I owe that to you. And you all, she got me good. Listen, I said to her, I got my stuff, and I said, I hope you have a good day. Without even blinking, she goes, well, I hope you have a bad one, and walks away. Who does that, okay? But I'm not going to own that for her, right? That's on her. That's her energy. That's not my energy. And so I do want to leave you with a few things. Can you be super successful money-wise and have high ego? Yes. But I'm going to tell you, when I coach leaders, usually when I start these workshops, I'll say, I want you to think about the leader you really admire in your career. And if I asked you right now to think about that one person that you really admire, no one's going to think about the person that had ego, that thought about themselves, that was arrogant, that was condescending. No one. So when you think about your legacy, that is not going to be, that person will not be the person that anyone in this room thinks about. And so you've got to get clear about how you want to show up. What do you want your legacy to be? And so I want you to do a few things as we leave here. So I got 2 minutes. I want to tell you the takeaways. So number one is I want you just to take responsibility for your energy every day, especially in this conference. So today, when I don't know who's going after me. Good luck, because you're going to be like, point your feet, open up, okay, do all this, all right? All right? But what I would say is, as you're speaking, I just want you to show up for the people at your table. When someone's talking, are you on your phone? Are you facing away? Or do you show up and say, when I coach people, sometimes I do check out, and I have to tell myself, I owe it to Tina to show up for Tina right now. I owe it to her. And if I can't, I'm going to go outside and get on my phone and take care of my emails or go make a phone call. That's okay, but just go be fully present in your life, and then be fully present for the people in this room when you come back in. Number two is I always tell people you have to learn to see yourself inside the conversation. So when you're talking right now at your table this week, or today, imagine yourself, if you could see above yourself and you were looking down at how you're showing up, would you be proud of that? Would people be like, you know what, she created trust, she created connection. Someone might not talk at your table, and do you have the willingness and the courage to look over and say, hey, is everything okay? I know you haven't contributed. I want to hear what you have to say because it matters to me. Like, do we just go out of our way and do that for people? And the last thing is this. Understanding how to just flex your style when it's appropriate. You do not always have to show up as confident and powerful, and there's a time to be collaborative and empathetic. And do you know how to really do that? So, a couple things I want to leave you with. On the bottom of my website, on the homepage, justinpatton.com, I try to send out a weekly, really short newsletter to people around some type of leadership or communication topic. I try to keep it about 2 minutes or under, so it's really short. So if you want to sign up for there, there's a text message. You can do it on the text message on the handout I gave you. And I want to leave you with these final two things. I love this quote. Leo Tolstoy said, everyone thinks about changing the world, but not a lot of people think about changing themselves. And I hope when you leave here that you will give yourself permission just to say, you know what? I have one or two things that I can do to probably show up different. And I want to end with this. The lady that I teach with at Taco Bell, she's an amazing woman. Her name is Sandra. And she goes, one of the hardest lessons I've ever learned as a career woman, as a mom, is to give myself permission to burn the Superwoman cape that I try to wear every day. And she goes, and here's how I'm going to apply that. You know, there was another woman in that Taco Bell conference that I did. She came up to me. She had just had her first granddaughter. And she goes, you know what I've realized now? She goes, I gave my children, I worked so hard to give them everything that I did not have. And what I realize now is I gave them everything but me. And all they wanted all along was me. And so sometimes I think we put on these superhero capes, or you as women leaders put on superhero capes, and you had to do all these things for everyone. And I just want to leave you with this. You don't have to do anything besides just show up. Your presence alone makes you a champion for other people. And please give yourself permission this week to kind of burn that Superwoman cape, put it away, and just be fully present for the people in your life. I'm a big believer. No one says they believe in people enough. So if no one tells you they believe in you, I believe in you. And I hope you have a great conference. So thank you all very much. Thank you.